Rhom is a desert wasteland inhabited by the Buri tribesmen. Originally, its people were all united under Eslan, the Undying King, and the Basha priesthood who supported him, but ever since the realm fell, there was a split between those who supported the king and those who believed he was responsible for the realm's destruction. From the Basha priesthood thus sprung the Akari faction, which is a heretical group who wishes to destroy the king and restore the realm's guardian in an attempt to revive the planet. Upon entering Rhom, one of the Akari supporters tells you to seek Eslan, who rules from the citadel beyond the Black Sun Gate. So already from the start your goal is to make your way through the various dungeons and bosses, find some sort of key to grant passage into the citadel, and confront the Undying King. You also receive the World Walker trait when you venture into the first overworld area of Rhom. This trait reduces the stamina consumption for performing actions such as sprinting and evading by 1% per trait point, up to a maximum of 20%. The most common enemies in the Buri settlements are the Buri Impalers and Detonators. They are quite similar in both size and appearance, and wield spears and clawed hands as their main weapons. They can throw their spears from some distance and impale you, causing you to stagger. The Detonator's spear is also loaded with an explosive that detonates after a short while. If you get hit by a Detonator spear, you will take damage from the initial impact, but you can negate the subsequent explosion damage if evaded with the proper timing. To tell these enemies apart, the Buri Impaler wears a white skull mask while the Detonator wears a metal mask instead. The skull mask can be broken after a few hits, exposing the head as the weak spot, but the Detonator's face protector cannot be broken, so it has no weak spots. I would recommend to simply take them down with body shots and to stay clear of their thrown spears. Their spear throw attack is preceded by a clear sound cue and a small bright flash and can be easily dodged if you stay in motion, but on closer ranges you might have to dodge the attack with a roll. If you avoid the Detonator's spear throw, it will stay embedded in the world for a short while and then explode, dealing damage to everything near them, including other enemies. A common elite enemy around these parts is the Berzerker, which has some sort of tusks attached to their arms and wearing a different skull helmet with tusks in it. This is one of the most dangerous foes, as they will rush straight for you in a blind rage and try to slice you in half with their tusk arms. They are deceptively fast once they get the speed up and can be surprisingly nimble in their turns. You will need to dodge this foe, otherwise you will die. Shooting it in the legs can stagger it, but I prefer to break its helmet to open up the weak spot for increased damage. Be warned though that breaking the helmet makes it fly into an even greater rage, rushing you without abandon in multiple quick successions. If you manage to survive this flurry of attacks, the Berserker will become fatigued, giving you an excellent opportunity to deal some extra damage while it recovers. I would say this is one of the most dangerous enemies to face on Rhom because of its high health pool, fast speed, and strong attacks. As is common for every world, there are a number of different breakables in Rhom. In the Overworld, these mostly include pots, urns, and chairs, and in the dungeons they are often black metal sheet covers or old cylindrical containers, sometimes filled with radiation. You will see me breaking these at least a few times each as the video progresses. Throughout the first part of Rhom, I could really feel that my gear was under-leveled for the first time in the campaign. I noticed this in the amount of ammunition needed to take down the enemies in the first village, and it became blatantly obvious when I dived into the first side dungeon that it was high time to upgrade my gear to try to stay on par with the game's bump in scaling. Concourse of the Sun was the first dungeon I discovered, straight due north of the first Buri settlement. It is a side dungeon filled with Anointed, Ghasts and Lurkers as the most common foes, and it leads into the lost Gantry at the end. But more of that comes later. First I met another elite enemy called the Buri Shaman. The Buri Shaman is an elite enemy that is easy to recognize because it is the only enemy outside of dungeons that wields a staff. It has some sort of stone or metal plate embedded where their eyes would be, and it glows with a yellowish light whenever it performs an action. It usually stays at a range and fires various radiation-based attacks towards you, and it also has the ability to buff or heal nearby foes. Therefore, it can be good to drop surrounding enemies quickly, so the Shaman does not have time to buff or heal them. As you will see soon enough, the Shaman does have some melee attacks as well if you rush up to it. Usually it does a staff melee attack, which is what I was expecting, but instead it did the much rarer kick attack, twice, and thus I was down and out. After dying to the Buri Shaman, I respawned and made my way towards the dungeon once more. So if you would like to skip the remaining fighting, the first visit to Concourse of the Sun is at 10:16 in the video. Anointed are humanoid-looking guardsmen with a powerful staff that are often seen patrolling hallways in certain dungeons. They are also found guarding the Undying King, so perhaps they are somewhat akin to a royal guard. They mostly use their staffs to fire blobs of energy towards you from a distance, and these attacks are not as easily avoided as one might think. Having quite a large health pool, or perhaps just a very strong armor, they are also rather resilient, so aiming for the head is the best way to destroy them. Rarely they might charge towards you, and if you end up in a closer engagement, they also have a melee slam attack. Ghasts and lurkers are similar creatures, with 2 pointed legs and 1 eye. Lurkers are the smaller ones, with a white-grey color palette and a red eye. Ghasts are similar to lurkers in appearance and behavior. They are a bit bulkier and grey-green, with a big yellow eye, and they exude radiation. Their attack patterns are mostly the same as the lurkers, but there is one critical difference. Ghasts explode into a radioactive cloud upon death, dealing both a significant amount of damage and building up the radiation meter. Trust me, this is one enemy you want to pick off from a distance. Aim for the big eye in the center of their being and you should be able to deal weak spot damage to take them down faster. After dipping my toes into the dungeon, I quickly went back to the ward to craft the Spitfire submachine gun and upgrade it to level 4. I also upgraded the hunting rifle to level 6. Since Spitfire is a boss weapon, each upgrade is worth 2 times that of any normal weapons, so upgrading it to level 4 is equivalent to a regular weapon being upgraded to level 8. Thus I wanted to upgrade my hunting rifle as well to plus 8 to match the Spitfire's rank, but I ran out of scraps, so I had to make do with it as it was. Going back to lurkers, which are the most abundant foe in the dungeon, they are rarely found alone and often rush at you as soon as you are spotted, jumping the last way while performing their common claw swipe attack. Although numerous, they can be readily dealt with due to their low health pool, and they also stagger easily. If you are chased by a pack of lurkers, make sure to check behind your back and take some exit shots every now and then, or you will be sure to feel those claws digging into you before long. After upgrading my gear, I did my first proper run-through of the dungeon. Unfortunately, I ended up dying, but before that I picked up the Brutal Mark Amulet. This item increases all damage dealt to targets below 50% health, which makes it a good alternative during boss fights. On my second attempt, I made it all the way through the dungeon. Since I had already looted the only key item, the remaining points of interest were the 2 new elite enemy encounters, with the first one taking place around the 16-minute mark.
It's over.
The first elite enemy I faced in Concourse of the Sun was a Sentinel Skull, which is a triangular-shaped flying enemy with a fiery core in the middle. It has the ability to call lurkers with its high-pitched scream, which also stuns you if you are too close. Its main attack is a volley of flames, which it fires towards you, and it will set you on fire if you get hit. It seems to be entirely immune to the Spitfire's flamethrower mod, so in this case, fighting fire with fire would only result in you getting burnt to a crisp. Interestingly, the Sentinel Skull does take damage from the regular rounds of the weapon, despite the description stating that it is entirely fire-based. Its weak spot is the center of its being, which it opens up only when it screams to summon lurkers. Because of its ability to summon adds and its constant forward momentum, it tends to put you in a retreating position, so be careful where you fall back to, lest you might find yourself running straight into another group of enemies. Having a weapon powerful enough to quickly eliminate the lurkers will help tremendously against this foe, since it gives you the opportunity to focus damage on the elite without having to constantly run away from the adds. Lastly, don't forget to roll or backstep as soon as you get hit by the flame attack, or use a hydrocoolant if you have them on you. Next elite encounter was at 1850. The second elite enemy I faced in this dungeon was an Anointed Swordsman, which is similar in stature to a regular Anointed, but has a different weapon that can fire orbs of radiation towards you. Because of the large weapon, crescent-shaped head, and long skirt, it is easy to recognize when this foe is around. It has a strong melee attack with a very long reach and potential roll catch, so it's best to stay at medium to long range when fighting it. Aim for the head, dodge the radiation orbs it sends out every now and then, and make sure to delay your roll just for a moment after it charges you for the strong melee attack. With all enemies defeated, I went on to do a bit of looting before I made my way to the end of the dungeon. Afterwards, I teleported back to the ward to purchase the Hunter Armour Set, and also upgraded my hunting rifle to +7 before finally entering the Lost Gantry arena. The first attempt is at 2350 in the video.
moving.
So you brought... I can hot. You're made of... Certainly. So long. Anything you need? Certainly. Take care, my friend.
Keep moving.
You? Oh, what a... Here you go. Keep your head up.
You saw that? I thought I'd be afraid to step. Till next time. Keep moving.
Anything you need? What do you need? Take care, my friend.
The Lost Gantry is an onslaught type arena, where you first have to activate it by going up the middle stairs and interacting with the button at the end of the platform. This starts a fight similar to the Root Shrine event on Earth, where numerous waves of various enemies will approach your location to try and bring you down. The main difference is that there are no elite spawns in this area, but that does not mean this fight is by any means easy. The sheer number and combination of enemies thrown at you in this fight really tests your skill, and you must stay constantly moving and shooting to have any chance of surviving. It is very easy to get snuck up on by a ghast or lurker, or to take a long-ranged hit from an Anointed's energy blob, or splash damage from a slinger grenade launcher. As usual, I went with a Hunter's Mark and Hotshot mod combination for all the usual reasons of enhanced visibility, awareness and increased damage. Although I did get pushed out of the location during my winning attempt, I would recommend the long corridor on the back right portion of the arena, since this allows you to have a clear line of sight in front of you, funneling most enemies in the narrow corridor on the right side, and also protecting you from most long-ranged enemy attacks from the central floor. After surviving this encounter, the gate at the far end of the room opens and you can grab the beam rifle, which is resting on a pedestal in the room. It seems reminiscent of an Indiana Jones scene, where the moment you pick the rifle up, some sort of trap would be sprung. However, I can assure you it is entirely safe to loot this reward. The beam rifle is a unique weapon that fires a beam that deals radiation damage, and it gets increasingly stronger the longer you sustain fire on a target. This is because of a hidden mechanic in which a debuff is applied on hit, and this debuff can be stacked multiple times as long as you keep hitting the same target. It is possible to perform a neutral dodge and still keep the debuff stack if you fire again immediately afterwards. The weapon opens up for a bit more variety, since its native damage type is radiation based, and it also has a weapon mod slot allowing you to get multiple damage types in one weapon. Why I mention this specifically is because many weapons that have elemental damage profiles typically come with pre-installed weapon mods, but this one doesn't. Coming out of the dungeon equipped with the beam rifle, I felt that my offensive capabilities were significantly enhanced. I made my way through the Buri village and found Wood, the Wasteland merchant. If you wish to skip the looting and shooting parts, you can go to 3800 in the video.
It's over. It's over. It's over.
Wood seems to be a nice guy, because even if you break his entire collection of scrap items, he remains friendly, and you can buy blood warts, ammo boxes and heavy water elixirs in his shop. The heavy water elixir counteracts the radiation effect, so it can be advised to purchase a couple of these while in Rhom. A side note, once you've obtained a new consumable, it will always be available in Regis's shop back in Ward 13. Next to Wood you can find his Wasteland Hound companion. Pet it and you will receive the Very Good Boy weapon mod, which is an account bound item. It summons a Wasteland Hound that actively seeks out enemies in a large radius. When there are no enemies around, you can pet your summon for a 5% damage increase for 60 seconds. And there is also a hidden feature which grants a passive 0.5% health regeneration over time after doing so. Since I already had this weapon mod from a previous playthrough, nothing happened for me when I pet his little friend, but I did it anyway because I think you should always pet a good boy when you can. You can also purchase 2 additional items from Wood, Jewel of the Black Sun and Mender's Charm. Jewel of the Black Sun is a quite powerful ring that increases all ranged damage dealt by 7% after every ranged kill, and it stacks up to 3 times, providing a maximum ranged damage buff of 21%. Each stack lasts for 20 seconds, so essentially this ring will provide you with a constant 7 to 21% ranged damage increase for every fight you get in, since you almost certainly will always be fighting more than one opponent at the time. The Mender's Charm is a support type amulet that heals all allies with 100% base effectiveness. It also increases all health regeneration by 50%. It is not an item I typically use for my playthroughs, but I do remember trying it out years ago before they changed the Twisted Set together with a maxed out Triage trait, Eslan's Band, Blood Font and the Riven Scythe, and just spamming its strong attack triple hit combo and being unstoppable due to the insane health regeneration. Wood can offer you information about Rhom and its people if you inquire about what stories he has to share, but he does not part with it willingly. You have to pay 100 scraps to listen to his secrets. If you repeat this process 5 times, you not only learn more about the world around you, but you also earn his trust, which unlocks the armor section in his shop, allowing you to purchase the Osseus Set. Since I did not have enough scrap to purchase the full set, and seeing as how I would be coming back to Wood later due to the way this map was designed, I held off on buying the armor until later. The Osseus Armour Set bonus is Bloodlust, which allows for up to a maximum 35% damage bonus from subsequent ranged or melee damage hits on the same target. It is stated that this effect degrades over time, but I honestly cannot say I have ever really noticed it that much while using the set. The set also increases your melee speed and fire rate by 5%. It is a good armor set that works well paired with the beam rifle. The main drawback I can think of is that, just like the Twisted Set, it is in the medium weight class, giving you a slightly slower dodge roll and more stamina consumption compared to, for example, the Hunter Set or any other light armor. Also, you will need to be consistently generating hits on the same target for it to be at its maximum efficiency, so it is essentially a worse option for just running through parts with a lot of trash mobs. I would recommend it for certain boss fights only. As you saw earlier after exiting Wood's shop, I saw the Citadel for the first time, before I turned back and went south towards the next Buri settlement. Nothing special occurred during this section, just some regular clearing of enemies and looting, so feel free to skip ahead to 5241, which is when I entered the next side dungeon. The Burrows is a side dungeon filled with Wasteland skulls and Blight skulls that can track you through walls and fly through geometry, allowing them to seemingly pop up from just about anywhere. Because of this, you always have to be wary of their sound cues, so you can react if they sneak up on you or come at you from an unexpected angle. Wasteland skulls have a low health pool and can be readily dealt with as long as you can figure out where they are coming from. The main challenge fighting them stems from the fact that their movement pattern can be quite unpredictable, as they might spot you from very far away and either take a very roundabout path to your position or, as mentioned earlier, just fly straight through a ceiling or a wall to get to you directly. This means you always have to be on guard against this enemy. Their only attack is firing a blob of energy towards you, which is preceded by a high-pitched sound. It is this sound that you have to listen for. Once you have a Wasteland skull in your sights, the fight is typically over in a couple of shots, but be warned that they rarely come alone. You might take down a few of them in one room, only to go through some tunnels and get killed by one of their friends who decided to take the long way round instead. The Blight Skull is a larger flying enemy easily identified by the yellow light emanating from it. They only have one mode of action, kamikaze. As soon as they spot you, they will fly straight towards you at an accelerated pace and blow themselves up, dealing significant damage and also leaving behind a lingering cloud of radiation. As they perform the charge, there is a high-pitched sound which lets you know how close they are to you and when they are about to explode, which helps of course with the dodge timing. They have much more health than the regular Wasteland skulls and they cannot be staggered easily, so to fight them you have a few choices. You can have a weapon powerful enough to destroy them before they reach you, or use a weapon mod that can take aggro away from you. You could also opt to not fight them and simply evade their explosion with a well-timed dodge. Lastly, the simplest way to defeat them is to use any radiation-based weapon against them, for example the beam rifle. Granted, you might not have access to the beam rifle at this point, or any other radiation-based weapons, as it depends on what dungeons you rolled in your campaign. But if you do, they will one-shot the Blight Skull. This is because the skull overcharges when hit by radiation. I found one new item in this dungeon, Radioactive Ember. This is an amulet that adds 15% to all radiation damage and also converts regular melee weapons from physical to elemental, dealing radiation damage. This obviously would pair well with the beam rifle, seeing as how its damage is radiation based, so I tried it on when I got it. I would not say that it's a great amulet though, since there are very few radiation-based alternatives in the game in terms of weaponry and mods, and there are other amulets which grant similar or larger benefits that are not limited to radiation damage alone. I fought two new elite enemies in this dungeon, the Hive Skull and Strider, and setting yourself on fire is definitely not the best way to beat them. Since I already looted the main item of this dungeon, feel free to skip ahead to 5827 for a good example of a Hive Skull engagement. The Hive Skull enemy is easy to identify with its hive-shaped head and claw-like arms. It moves quite slowly towards you, and when it reaches you, it will do a strong melee attack which extends its arms and swipes them towards you. This attack can be avoided with a roll if timed correctly, but you should know that it can go through geometry. I would recommend always dodging this attack with a backwards roll or a backstep until you have really learned the distance of the attack, and to always dodge around corners and such where you might get hit. Shooting its head spawns radioactive wasps that track you through the air, forcing you to kite around corners or dodge them at the last second to avoid damage. These also build up the radiation status effect upon hit. I never found this mechanic troublesome, so I typically aim for the head, despite it not being a weak spot, but if you have trouble dodging the flies, you can shoot its legs instead. Lastly, I would recommend avoiding fighting this enemy on stairwells, because the extended arm melee attack has a weird hitbox that seems to snatch you even when you're way above it and it looks like the attack should pass below you. The Strider is a weird looking enemy. It mostly walks on all fours, with a big automatic turret on top of its body and a large bulbous back. When it spots you, it will slowly approach until it is within fire range, at which point it spins up the turret and let loose a long barrage of accurate bullets in your direction. Switching your shoulder view while staying behind partial cover is critical to survive this foe, as you will quickly be riddled with holes if you employ a more heads-on strategy. I would say this is one of my least favorite enemy encounters. They are not fun to fight and are rather robust as they are fully armored from the front and sides. The weak spot is the exposed back, but it is very challenging to get an angle to hit it while playing solo, as the Strider will always be approaching you from the front. One method I found that works somewhat is to use a stairwell and fire on its back as it is coming up, but beware of returning fire. Other than that, it can be good to use weapon mods that deal damage over time. Since Striders are such slow-moving targets, they will already be half dead from the dot before they ever come within firing range. After making it to the end of the dungeon, I headed back to the ward to stock up on some consumables and upgrade my 2 main armor sets and the newly acquired beam rifle to +7. Then I went back to the dungeon to enter the Stalker's den. If you would like to skip ahead to this point in the video, it's at 1:06:03.
I'm in trouble.
Dude, no, there's still a lot. Till next time.
How can only the... Take care, friend.
I'm not in the mood for chat.
Oh, traveler. What do you need? Take care, my friend.
Stalker's Den is an arena where the Houndmaster resides. It is also the home of Maul, a very large and vicious hound. If you approach the fireplace with caution, you can sit down and speak with the Houndmaster, who will warn you that the surrounding canines are all but friendly should you cross them. After some conversation, it is possible to purchase the Houndmaster's jerky for 500 scrap, which increases the critical damage by 15% for 60 minutes and persists after death. After checking out his shop, you have the option to leave the arena or start a boss fight by shooting the Houndmaster or any of the canines. Since I never skip any boss fights and I know from before there is an item from this fight I need for later, I of course went for the fight option and started beaming the Houndmaster in the face. This instantly turns Maul and the other dogs hostile, and you will have to dodge both the Houndmaster and the dog's attacks if you want to survive. My first attempt was rather short-lived, as I was quite efficiently defeated by a powerful charge by Maul. There is a mechanic in this fight where the Houndmaster controls the dogs through the control rod embedded in his face. By breaking this item he is susceptible to being attacked by the pack, and will be swiftly defeated unless you bring him down first. Once dealt with, the Houndmaster does not respawn and the fight turns to Maul instead. To defeat Maul, there is no circumventing that you will have to learn to dodge its charge attacks. And when you have survived the charge attacks, the next goal is to manage the adds successfully. Whenever Maul stops and howls, it summons several Wasteland hounds that you need to be aware of. They usually spawn a bit away from you in the edge of the arena and slowly stalk their way towards you, readying their attack when you got your back turned against them. During this time, there is an opportunity to damage the boss, as it will stay quite harmless while summoning its pack. Radiation damage has a 10% damage bonus against Maul, but when I tried using the beam rifle I got mixed results, mainly because the beam rifle was not as efficient at managing the adds. With the hunting rifle I was able to one-shot the regular hounds and two-shot the Stalker dogs, which is why I went with it in the end. As for armor, I might have opted for the Twisted set, since most of the boss damage dealt was through the flamethrower mod. However, having the light roll made it easier to dodge Maul's charge attacks, so I went with the Hunter set. With Maul defeated, both the Hound Choker and the Control Rod were obtained. The Hound Choker is used to craft the Howler's Immunity weapon mod, which projects a 20-meter aura that reduces all incoming damage by 15 to 25%, depending on your weapon level, and lasts for 30 seconds. The Control Rod is a key item that is used to initiate an optional boss fight near wood. Outside his shop is an Anointed collapsed in the sand. By interacting with it, you can use the Control Rod to wake it from its slumber, thus starting the boss fight. There will be more information regarding this boss in the next video when I actually fight it. After exiting the dungeon, there were a couple of directions to go, and I ended up dying a couple of times while exploring. In between these deaths, I first discovered the Monolith puzzle solution, and also the compulsion loop ring. The solution to the Monolith puzzle is always found on the back wall behind the citadel, and is, as the name suggests, the key to solving the Monolith puzzle, in which you have to step on different tiles in the correct order to complete the puzzle. The compulsion loop is a ring that grants increased movement speed by 20%, fire rate by 15% and melee speed by 10% for 7 seconds after slaying an enemy. This makes the ring into a solid alternative for most purposes, and especially fitting for my playstyle, since I enjoy playing through games as fast and smoothly and with as little downtime as possible. So a ring that grants a whopping 20% increase in movement speed, and on top of that also a 15% fire rate increase? Yes please. Needless to say, I immediately put the ring on, coupled with Jewel of the Black Sun. Armed with these two rings in my arsenal, the game slowly started progressing more and more smoothly, and I made my way through the Buri tribesmen to the next dungeon, the Shackled Canyon. And that is where the video ends, folks. Give the video a like, subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned for the next video, where I complete the second half of Rhom and finally get to meet the Undying King. Leave your comments down below, and as always, thanks for watching, and I wish you all a pleasant rest of your day.